They can't stop watching you. Why? Because they don't get how you did it. But you did. And now, you're unstoppable. The truth is, chosen ones carry a frequency that disrupts the norms of the natural world. When you walk into a room, your energy precedes you. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the vibration of someone who has died to the ego and awakened to their divine identity. People can sense it, even if they can't explain it. Psychologists refer to this as limbic resonance, the way humans subconsciously pick up on others' emotional and energetic states. So when you're walking in peace while others are drowning in chaos, trust me, they notice. They're not just staring because of your glow. They're staring because your very presence forces them to confront their own confusion. I once met a woman during a retreat, quiet, reflective, unassuming. She was the type of person you might overlook until she spoke. Her words didn't just inform, they transformed. They had the weight of someone who had been crushed and refined like gold in the fire. I later learned she had faced heartbreak, loss, rejection. Yet here she was, not broken, but reborn. Someone finally asked, "How did you get like this?" And her answer was simple, powerful, and unforgettable. I remembered who I was. That's what sets the chosen ones apart. You don't climb the ladder of success the way others do. You rise through surrender, through spiritual insight, through divine timing. The world teaches hustle, manipulation, and branding, but you move by revelation. You didn't take the beaten path, you carved out your own, following the whispers of God rather than the noise of the crowd. That's why they're watching. They saw you fall and expected you to stay down. But instead, you came back stronger, quieter, and wiser. They see the transformation but can't track the process. To them, it's baffling, but to you, it's sacred. There's a spiritual principle at play here. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." That's why your glow irritates their shadows. You reflect what they forgot. They too were created with purpose, but life's noise has muted their calling. That's why your success feels personal to them. It's not envy of your material life. It's confusion over your spiritual peace. And here's the kicker. Your journey isn't even over. What they see now is just a preview. The real show is what God is unfolding behind the scenes. So stay aligned, chosen one. You're not meant to be understood. You're meant to be revealed. Keep walking in obedience. Keep moving with purpose. And remember, the same people watching now with confusion may one day come to you for clarity. Point one, you moved in silence and they missed the memo. People expect transformation to come with trumpets, flashing lights, and public declarations. They're conditioned to look for spectacle. The New Year, New Me posts, the gym check-ins, the filtered highlight reels that scream, "I've changed." But you did the unthinkable. You took the silent route. No announcements, no hashtags, just divine work in the shadows. You grew in the dark like a seed buried beneath the weight of doubt, rejection, and pain. And now, you're blooming like a miracle in plain sight. Proof that not all breakthroughs come with noise. They didn't see the nights you wrestled with your soul, crying out to God at 3 a.m. with red eyes and a cracked voice, asking for clarity, strength, and peace. They weren't there when you were fasting, not just from food, but from distractions, validation, and anything that fed your ego instead of your spirit. They didn't witness the inner grind, the spiritual discipline, the scripture, the prayer, the solitude, the shadow work. You confronted your demons with God at your side, not in public, but in private, where the real wars are won. Now that the glow is showing, now that your energy is unmistakably elevated, they're stunned, confused. People love a before and after story, but only if they get to watch the messy middle. You denied them that. You didn't give them access to your cocoon. And that's what rattles them most. They can't figure out how you got here because they weren't invited to the process. Funny thing, they still think it was luck. Nah, baby, that was grace. That was obedience. That was alignment. That was you choosing the narrow path. When the wide one looked easier, that was refinement through fire, and they think you just stumbled into this new level like you hit the jackpot. They don't know the currency of surrender. They don't understand what it costs to truly evolve. You became the person they never expected because you stopped trying to impress and started trying to align. That's what makes you dangerous. You weren't hustling for approval, you were healing in secret. While they were chasing applause, you were chasing anointing. While they were scrolling, you were studying. While they were partying, you were pruning. You allowed yourself to be stripped so that God could clothe you with something eternal. Now, when you walk in the room, something's different. It's not just your presence, it's your peace, and peace like that. It speaks louder than any success story. It's a spiritual glow-up that money can't buy and clout can't fake. You don't need to explain it. You are it. A walking testimony that obedience popularity, that solitude births strength, that God doesn't do his best work in the spotlight. He does it in the secret place. So let them talk. Let them assume. Let them scratch their heads and call it luck. Let them wonder how you managed to change your whole life without the Instagram updates. You owe them nothing, because what was born in the dark wasn't meant to entertain. It was meant to transform. And now they're watching the miracle bloom without ever realizing it was buried right in front of them. Chosen one, this is your season, not because you shouted for it, but because you prepared for it in silence. And the best part, God's not done yet. You haven't even hit your full stride, so keep walking, keep glowing, keep growing. Let them think it happened overnight while heaven smiles, knowing exactly how long you've been sowing in the dark. Point 2, you broke generational patterns without a blueprint. Chosen one, you weren't just born to exist, you were born to interrupt. You are the chain breaker, the anomaly, the divine blueprint disruptor. While everyone else inherited dysfunction and just passed it along like a family recipe, you paused. You asked questions, you reflected, you prayed, you healed. And that right there, that is what set you apart. Because in a bloodline where trauma was tradition, you decided healing would be your legacy. Generational trauma isn't just a buzzword, it's real. Science has shown that emotional wounds, behavioral patterns, and even stress responses can be passed down through genetics. Studies in epigenetics prove that trauma alters gene expression, meaning your great-grandmother's pain might still be whispering through your nervous system today. But here's what's revolutionary, it can be reversed. And you, chosen one, are proof of that reversal. You didn't inherit peace, you chose it. You rewrote the script they handed you in crayon, full of chaos, shame, and silence. And instead, you wrote truth in permanent ink. They're watching you, not just out of curiosity, but out of conviction. They see you walking in forgiveness while they're still clutching grudges like trophies. They see you choosing faith when fear was the only thing they ever knew. You stopped asking for permission to be whole. You stopped playing the role they wrote for you. You didn't just think outside the box. You realized you were never supposed to be in the box to begin with, and let's be honest, they never thought it would be you. You were the quiet one, the misunderstood one, the one they laughed off. But here you are, not just surviving, but thriving, with clarity, with purpose, with divine direction. You don't just carry light, chosen one, you are the light. And when light enters a room, darkness doesn't debate, it scatters. That's why some folks avoid you now. That's why the conversations get awkward, the energy gets weird, and the gossip gets louder. You didn't expose them. Your healing exposed what was possible. They thought the cycles would last forever. Addiction, poverty, silence, shame. But then came you. You looked those demons in the face and said, "It ends with me." And heaven backed you up. That's why your dreams feel bigger, your calling feels heavier, and your presence feels disruptive. Because you're not just carrying your own breakthrough, you're carrying freedom for generations you'll never even meet. So don't shrink, don't apologize, don't dim to make others comfortable in their dysfunction. The same way trauma echoed through your bloodline for generations, so will your healing. Your laughter will echo where there were only tears. Your boundaries will echo where there was only chaos. Your faith will echo where there was only fear. You're the spiritual architect of a new bloodline. And catch this, you're not done yet. You're just getting started. What you've built so far is only the foundation. You're still breaking chains, still waking people up, still rewriting what it means to come from that family. Every time you heal, forgive, grow, or break silence, you shift the atmosphere. You activate blessings that were on pause until you showed up with the courage to confront what no one else would touch. Chosen one, you are the proof that a new story can be told. Even if the old one was repeated for centuries. They didn't expect it, but God did. You were heaven's plot twist all along. Point 3, you found joy in simplicity while they chased chaos. While the world screamed more, you whispered peace. And that whisper, It shook the room louder than any megaphone could. Because in a society driven by constant consumption, never-ending hustle, and curated chaos, your refusal to participate feels like rebellion. Chosen one, your stillness isn't just noticed. It's unsettling to the world that profits off of noise. While they chase clout and collapse from burnout, you sit calmly, sipping your tea, fully content with being exactly where you are. And it baffles them. See, we live in a culture where chaos is mistaken for success. If you're not stressed, busy, booked, and loud, you're assumed to be lazy or irrelevant. But you've unplugged from that matrix. You've chosen intentional alignment over performative ambition. That's not laziness, that's wisdom. Studies in neuroscience even show that people who spend intentional time in solitude tend to have heightened levels of creativity, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. You're not avoiding life, you're mastering your energy. And while they think you're falling behind, you're actually moving in silence with divine precision. Let's be real. Drama is addictive. There's even science behind it. The brain releases dopamine in reaction to emotionally charged situations, especially those involving social status, gossip, or conflict. That's why so many people can't put their phones down. They're hooked on drama like it's caffeine for their soul. But not you. You're not addicted to attention. You're allergic to it when it's fake. You'd rather sit alone with your spirit than stand in a crowded room pretending to be someone you're not. And that authenticity, that sacred self-awareness, it's messing with them. Because here's the truth. Your calm is loud. Your contentment is a revolution. In a society that thrives on external validation, your inner peace screams confidence. They don't understand how you're glowing without being seen. They don't get how you're thriving without posting. You don't brag, you just be. And that stillness confronts everything inside them that feels restless, fake, or unfulfilled. Without even trying, you're holding up a mirror they didn't ask for. And so the whispering starts. She's changed. He's distant now. They think they're better, but that's not the truth. You're just no longer willing to entertain the circus. You're not performing. You're not auditioning for acceptance in places where your spirit was never meant to sit. That's not detachment, it's divinity. You've been chosen for something sacred, and not everyone has the capacity to understand the silence required for your assignment. Chosen one, your peace is purpose-built. It's not apathy, it's alignment. It's not you being antisocial, it's you protecting the anointing that comes with your solitude. You've realized that every yes costs energy, and you've stopped handing it out like candy just to feel involved. While others beg to be included in noise, you've made your home in the quiet, because that's where you hear God, that's where you get clarity. That's where your next level is being downloaded. And yes, it confuses people, especially those who thought success was synonymous with chaos. Your rejection of that lie threatens their identity. Because if you're thriving in peace, then what does that say about their addiction to pressure? If you can be fulfilled without validation, what does that say about the hours they've spent curating perfection? You didn't choose to be different just to stand out. You chose peace because your soul couldn't survive in performance mode. You chose alignment because the spotlight was burning you alive. You chose your calling over clout. And now your quiet life is louder than their most viral moment. Let them wonder, let them whisper. You're not being mysterious, you're being holy, you're not falling behind, you're flowing forward. Your peace is proof of God's presence, and in a world gone mad with motion, your stillness is the most powerful movement of all. Point 4, you don't clap back, you glow back. They really tried you, didn't they, chosen one? Whispered your name in rooms you weren't invited to, laughed at your dreams like they were delusions, doubted your calling because it didn't come with a fancy title or instant applause. They gossiped, they judged, they pointed fingers, and yet you didn't flinch. You didn't clap back. You didn't throw shade. You understood something they didn't. Your journey wasn't for their validation, it was between you and God. While they were busy performing for the crowd, you were backstage preparing for the kind of spotlight they couldn't imagine. You chose the high road, the long road. Instead of proving yourself to the noise, you proved yourself to your purpose. You matured through the mockery, you prayed through the pressure, and you built in silence while everyone assumed you were stagnant. They mistook your patience for weakness, your stillness for failure, but what they didn't realize is that God does his best work in the unseen. When you were quiet, he was crafting. When you were hidden, He was planting, and now you're blooming. And here's the plot twist. The same ones who questioned you are now coming to you for wisdom. Isn't that poetic? The ones who mocked your vision now admire your results. They went from throwing dirt on your name to wanting seeds from your garden. That's what happens when divine timing meets unshakable faith. There's a sacred irony in how the tables turn, not with vengeance, not with noise, but with grace. Because chosen ones don't rise to prove people wrong. They rise because they were meant to. There's a psychological principle at play here called cognitive dissonance. When people treat someone a certain way, especially with disrespect, their brain starts forming a belief that the person deserves that treatment. But when you shatter their expectations, when you succeed, elevate and thrive in spite of how they treated you, it creates a discomfort in their mind. They can't reconcile the image of you they tried to maintain with the reality of who you've become. So, their only choice, respect you, or at the very least, stay silent. You see, the chosen one's path is never about revenge, it's about revelation. And while others were chasing applause, you were chasing alignment. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous. In the most divine way, you don't beg for recognition, you walk in it. And because you didn't retaliate, God did what he always does for his chosen. He made your enemies your footstool. Not so you could step on them, but so you could step up. The truth is, your silence was louder than their gossip. Your discipline drowned out their doubt. While they were clapping for trends, you were crafting a legacy. And now the fruits of your labor speak for themselves. It's not about proving anyone wrong, it's about proving God right. So the next time someone brings up how they always knew you'd make it, just smile. Let them talk. Because deep down, they know the truth. They didn't believe in you when it counted. But that's okay. They were just characters in a plot designed to highlight your strength. And now they watch in awe as the one they tried to bury blooms in full color. Keep shining, chosen one. Keep rising without bitterness. Because God's favor isn't loud, it's undeniable. Point 5, you learned the codes of the Spirit. Have you ever noticed how people keep whispering about how you always just knew? How did you somehow make decisions that went against the grain, looked crazy to everyone else, but ended up being exactly right? They're confused, they're stressed. They're trying to trace your moves like you've been using some secret playbook they weren't handed, and you know what? You were. But it didn't come from a textbook, a mentor, or a trending podcast. It came straight from source. See, chosen one, what they don't realize is you were never walking by logic. You weren't listening to opinions. You weren't waiting for confirmations from people who don't even know their own purpose. You were tuned into a higher frequency. While others were scrolling for answers, you were getting downloads from heaven. While they asked around, you went within. And that's what they can't explain. This is the spiritual GPS nobody teaches in schools. It's the kind of divine intelligence that doesn't follow the rules of this world. In biblical terms, this is walking by the Spirit, not by the flesh. Galatians 5:16. When you're walking in the flesh, you're ruled by your 5 senses. You're looking at how it looks, sounds, and feels. But when you walk by the Spirit, you're seeing from the inside out. You're picking up on things in the unseen realm. You're receiving instructions coded in silence, direction that makes no sense until it works. People will look at your moves and think you're reckless. Why'd he leave that job? Why'd she cut off that connection? Why is she suddenly moving cities? But you weren't operating on data. You were operating on discernment. You prayed before you posted. You fasted before you signed. You paused before you responded. You were never impulsive. You were instructed. Even science backs this up. Neuroscience shows that intuitive decisions often happen faster and more accurately than analytical ones, especially when you've been spiritually or emotionally conditioned to trust your instincts. What the world calls gut feelings, the chosen ones recognize as divine downloads, spiritual alerts that interrupt your plans for God's purpose. It's like hearing a silent alarm in the spirit that says, turn left, don't trust this person, say yes now, say nothing. And let's talk about how you avoided the traps, those setups, fake alliances, and silent assassins. People wonder how you knew not to trust that friend or why you didn't fall for that opportunity wrapped in flattery. They think you have spies or secrets, but your only secret is relationship with God. You weren't just spiritually awake, you were covered, protected, warned, God whispered when the enemy was smiling. He showed you when someone's eyes lied. That wasn't paranoia. It was prophetic insight. And now, they can't trace your steps. They want to replicate your journey, but they're stuck. Because when you walk by the Spirit, your path becomes invisible to those walking in the flesh. You're on coordinates that aren't on Google Maps. You're moving on divine timing, not hustle culture. While others follow algorithms, you follow alignment. This is why people start to distance themselves. Not because you did something wrong, but because your clarity convicts their confusion. Your peace disturbs their chaos. Your ability to move without needing validation terrifies them. Because deep down, they know you're plugged into something real, something unshakable. So yes, chosen one, they're confused. They're frustrated. They keep saying, how did they know? But let them keep wondering. Let them keep guessing. Because the truth is, they can't trace what was never mapped by man. You're not just walking, you're being led. And when you're led by the Spirit, every move you make is purpose-driven, destiny-aligned, and cloaked in divine protection. You are proof that faith is a strategy, that obedience is a weapon, and that hearing from God is the ultimate cheat code. Point 6, you're untouchable because you're covered. They don't know, chosen one. They have no idea. From the outside, people see the glow, the strength, and the way you walk like nothing ever tried to take you out. But behind that grace is a story of spiritual warfare, betrayal, isolation, and divine resilience. They didn't see the sleepless nights when your heart was heavy from backstabs you never deserved. They don't know how many traps were set for you, emotional traps, financial traps, spiritual setups, and how every time you were about to step into the snare, something unseen whispered, "Not this one." You felt it, you dodged it, not by luck, but by covering. See, people assume survival is about strength, but for the chosen, survival is about alignment. You weren't just lucky, you were led. Every door that slammed in your face wasn't rejection, it was redirection. What you thought was a loss was actually divine protection. That job that didn't call you back, that relationship that fell apart right before you gave your all, that friend who ghosted you right when you needed them most, that was heaven blocking what hell had planned. And here's the kicker, they thought it would break you. They counted on your silence, meaning defeat. They assumed that your isolation was a sign of weakness, that your humility was passivity. But what they didn't understand is this: your silence was sacred, your stillness was strategic. While they plotted, you were being prepared. You were being purified in fire that wasn't meant to destroy you, but to forge you. And fire, my friend, is the oldest purification method known to mankind. From gold to steel to spirit, all things of value are tested in the flames. That's why now, when you walk into a room, people get confused. There's a mystery about you, a strength that didn't come from hustle, but from holy endurance. Your peace is loud, your energy speaks before you do, because what they don't see, what their earthly eyes can't grasp, is that you're backed by something divine. You have angelic security. You're not walking alone. Heaven has been assigned to your path since the beginning. Even psychologically, this transformation is real. Neuroscientists call it post-traumatic growth, when a person not only bounces back from hardship, but also becomes better than they were before. Stronger, wiser, more self-aware, that's you. You don't just have scars, you have signs of transformation. You don't just survive the storm, you become the storm's prophecy fulfilled. So now those same people who whispered about your downfall, they're puzzled. They can't figure out how you're still standing, still glowing, still smiling, still rising. And it's because they didn't realize your assignment came with a security clearance from heaven. What they tried to use against you has only built the platform you now stand on. Don't shrink to make anyone comfortable. Don't downplay what you've overcome. You're living, breathing evidence that divine protection is real, that God hides his strongest warriors in plain sight. You've been the underdog, the overlooked, the counted out. But your story is the proof that being hidden doesn't mean being forgotten. It means being preserved. Chosen ones move differently. We don't seek revenge. We rise. We don't broadcast our pain. We transform it. We don't flex to prove. We exist as proof. You are proof that when purpose and pressure collide, destiny is born. And it terrifies people who only knew you by your past. But guess what? They weren't supposed to understand, because your journey is sacred. and not everyone gets the privilege of access. So walk boldly, chosen one. You are not alone, you're covered. And every trap they set, it only trained you. Every betrayal, it built discernment. Every delay, it refined the blessing. And now your glow is not for show, it's your anointing showing. Keep shining, keep confusing them. Your presence is the prophecy. Point 7, you trigger their unhealed selves. Let's keep it real, chosen one. This isn't just some surface level glow up. This is a deep spiritual transformation. What they're seeing now isn't just your outer radiance, it's the evidence of healing. You didn't just get a new wardrobe or switch up your hairstyle, you confronted your demons, you did the inner work, you faced the pain, the betrayal, and the generational curses and came out on the other side not just surviving, but thriving. And that kind of transformation, that kind of wholeness, it echoes. It speaks even when you're silent. It enters a room before you do. That's why the energy shifts when you walk in. Not because you're loud, but because your presence is powerful. Healing is disruptive. Most people are comfortable operating from their wounds, using them as shields, excuses, and even personality traits. But when a chosen one like you walks in, healed, whole, and unbothered, it stirs something in them. Your discipline convicts their procrastination. Your peace highlights their chaos. Your clarity exposes their confusion, and it's not even something you say, it's who you've become. That's why they whisper. That's why they side-eye. That's why they avoid direct conversation or toss around backhanded compliments like "you've changed" or "you think you're better now." Nah, you know you're better, and you should be. That's what healing does. It elevates, it awakens, it separates. And let's talk science for a second. Energy is real. The electromagnetic field that surrounds the human heart extends several feet beyond the body. So yes, your healed, elevated, spiritually aligned energy can be felt by others. You're not just glowing, you're radiating. And when someone is still stuck in their own darkness, your light feels invasive. It reveals things they've been working hard to keep hidden: insecurities, toxic behaviors, and unhealed wounds. You don't even have to say a word. Your existence becomes a mirror. And mirrors don't lie, they just reflect. It's not personal, it's spiritual. The warfare isn't with you, it's with what you represent. You're a walking contradiction to their comfort zone. They said you couldn't heal. You did. They said you'd never grow. You grew. They thought you'd fold. You rose. That's why your presence now triggers their projections. You were never meant to stay small, silent, or broken. You were meant to rise, and in doing so, you unintentionally expose every lie they've told themselves about why they can't. They say you're too much. But what they really mean is you're too awake, too disciplined, too joyful, too focused, too free. And let's be honest, freedom is intimidating to people still living in bondage. Your elevation challenges their stagnation. And while they might mask it with gossip or shade, deep down they know your light is real, your transformation is real, your power is earned. So don't dim your shine to make others feel better in their shadows. Don't shrink for the sake of fitting into spaces you've outgrown, and definitely don't apologize for your growth. You paid for this healing in nights of crying, prayers whispered into pillows, and silent battles. Nobody knew you were fighting. Your wholeness is your testimony. It's the evidence that God kept you, that you stayed the course, and that you didn't let bitterness win. Chosen one, you were never created to blend in. You were born to stand out. And that's exactly why your healing unsettles people. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your light exposes what others are still hiding. In psychological terms, people project their insecurities onto others. It's called projection bias. So when you grow, it reminds them of the places in themselves they've neglected. Your healing disrupts their comfort zones. Your evolution forces them to confront what they've been avoiding. But here's the twist. It's not your responsibility to carry. That's your spiritual badge of honor. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You didn't just overcome, you became a walking testimony. When you enter a room, you're not just making an appearance. You're carrying divine authority, spiritual gravity, and the unseen presence of everything you've conquered. That energy is real. Studies in neuroscience have shown that the energy you carry, your demeanor, posture, and confidence, actually changes how people's brains perceive you. And for someone chosen who's walked through fire and come out refined, your presence carries that sacred frequency. You're not just healed, you're a divine threat to anything false, toxic, or demonic that still tries to masquerade in the presence of your authenticity. And that's exactly why you're not meant to be understood. You're meant to be witnessed. Just like prophets in ancient scripture or spiritual leaders throughout history, your journey doesn't make sense to the crowd. It's encoded with heavenly data. That's why people will misread you, misunderstand you, or even resent you. Because they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the divine software running through you. Let them whisper, let them wonder, let them miscalculate. Because while they're watching from the sidelines, you're making history. You're moving with purpose, clarity, and divine timing. Think of Jesus, Moses, and David. They were never fully understood in their own time, but they weren't here to be understood. They were here to fulfill, and so are you. So don't shrink, don't second guess, and don't water down your essence. Keep glowing, keep growing, keep walking like you own the space, because spiritually every step you take echoes through realms, shaking strongholds and opening doors no man can shut. So stay radiant, stay grounded, and stay awake. The world doesn't need another copy, it needs your authenticity. You've been chosen, refined, and released. And now you're not just healed, you're a force, a divine disruption, a light in dark places, a living message that the truth will always outshine the lie. Let them witness the glow up, because this is only the beginning.